We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to NUFC Matters. Those were the days with George Mitchell. Hi, George.
Hi, Steve.
Good to see you. What season are you taking us back to, George?
2001. It's well, how do you call it? It's a Bobby Robson season. It's a transition season, and for me personally, was a season that Bobby Robson showed his real mettle as a manager, his experience, because it wasn't an easy season for him. So that's it, 2001. And anybody wants to remember what was happening, music at the time, Evergreen by Will Young was top. Unchained Melody by Gareth Gates, the young man who had a terrible stammer until he started to sing, and then he sang beautifully. It Wasn't Me by Shaggy. And This Is the Way to Amarillo with Tony Christie and Peter Kay. Who can forget that? And then if you're a cinema goer, picture goer, as these pictures we used to call them in my day, Top of the Pops was Gladiator. Now that happens to be one of my favourite films, and my Marjorie liked it as well, I've got to say, which surprised me because of the blood and gore. Normally she wouldn't watch anything like that, but I think she had a fancy for Russell Crowe. So, yeah, in The Dark Knight was shown, and of course the big foreign film was Slumdog Millionaire, which hit the headlines and made a fortune in terms of pictures. So lots of good stuff at the cinema, and music as well. Start of the season, typical Newcastle United, a full program of friendlies. Perhaps worth remembering as well, the Visa stand was now fully open, and the other stands were just about finished. So capacity went to over 50,000 at that time. It wasn't as big as it is now, but it was getting close there. And the average attendance for the season was 51,000, which says an awful lot for Newcastle fans. It really does. But I think it also says a lot about our manager, that people were really sympathetic towards Bobby. We did a pre-season run of games in America, promotional games against DC United and Columbus Crew and people like that. And some of the crowds that were there, the RFK Stadium, there was nearly 20,000. Apparently that's the biggest crowd that had in the stadium for Newcastle United against DC United. Mind we got turned over. But yeah, and then some friendlies at home, friendly at Burnley, and Feyenoord as well away, and Espanyol. And I think those two reflect Bobby Robson's past. You know, the one in Holland and a one in Barcelona, just to get warmed up, and because Espanyol, of course, is almost the Barcelona second team, and it's as I say, typical Newcastle United with a full program of friendlies in the pre-season, which is you know, is good, but at least they were channeled, I think, this time. Sometimes they've been you wondered why we chose where we went, but I think you could plot them easily when you think about who our manager was. So I think there's a number of early pictures, Steve, of the kit of the day, which different, but ones I particularly like. Yeah, that was a nice shirt as well. And there was a number of goalkeeping tops. I don't know why we chose to have. I think it was 3 altogether, or even more. But they were all smart, or at least I thought they were smart anyway. So right, season starts, and where do we go? Well, we're off to a away match at Old Trafford, Manchester United. There it is. There's the programme, and it's never an easy place to go at any time. But first game of the season, and 68,000 at the game, so it's, you know, starting off with a bang, as it were. And Bobby Robson's team for the day was Shea Given, Warren Barton, Aaron Hughes, Nikos Dabizas, Marcelino, Alan Goma, Rob Lee, Carl Court, Alan Shearer, Daniel Cordoni, and Gary Speed. It's worth mentioning Carl Court was the only big signing that we could afford because of all the money had been spent on the ground. And that was Bobby's big signing, Carl Court, 7 million from Wimbledon. I mean, it's laughable. However, as I said, he showed his mettle, because some of the other people he brought in, like for next to nothing, was Oliver Bernard, Andy O'Brien, players who did a real shift for Newcastle. And credit to Bobby Robson that he had no money, but he did his bit forward. Anyway, we go to Old Trafford, and they're a team of all stars, of course, as they always are, and they come out with the usual hype, and of course, littered in the team, and the star of the team is none other than our previous centre forward, Andy Cole, and alongside Jonsson, the Danish lad, gave us a torrid time. It was a 2-0 win to Manchester, but really it could have been a lot more. But they stuck at it, and it wasn't a disaster it could have been. We then come home to a match against Derby County, which and there's a picture from the Manchester United game, and it's first opportunity the fans have to kind of get into the new ground, and they fill it, 51,327, and I think that was the capacity of the day. That was the ground really full, and Bobby sticks to his team. He's loyal, like lots of managers are. Given Barton, Didier Domi comes in, Dabizas, Aaron Hughes, Gary Speed, Nobby Solano, Kieran Dyer, Alan Shearer, Carl Court, and Daniel Cordoni. So there's quite a few positional changes there, but Bobby making the use of the squad. Derby County, whose manager happened to be a man called Jim Smith, who we know a little bit about, and the Bald Eagle, as he was nicknamed up here. And they had some tidy players in the side. Danny Higginbottom at centre back. Stephen Elliott is in midfield. And had a left-sided attacker called Simo Varaklia, who was from Slovakia. What a dangerous player, but he seemed to have a good season, and then he faded quite badly. Anyway, this game gets off to a cracking start. Big header from Carl Court on 5 minutes, and we're 1-0 in the lead. And then just before the half-time whistle, this dangerous forward I've just been talking about makes it 1-1 right on the death at half-time. And it looks like we're in for a struggle. But immediately after the half-time, Daniel Cordoni at 46 minutes makes it 2-1. And then Stephen Glass, who came on as a substitute, the little lad Bobby Robson brought from Aberdeen, made it 3-1. And then 85 minutes, Seth Johnson, the Derby old defender from a corner, heads in to make it 3-2. And we have an uncomfortable 5 minutes to ride out to get the victory. But victory it was, and well played. Referee of the day, a man called Dermot Gallagher. Now, what a character he was. Quite controversial. Still comes on TV sometimes to talk about decisions of VAR and other things, but he was a character. As a referee, you got to know him because that was his style. The next game is a home game against Tottenham Hotspur, and games against Spurs are usually good football games, and we look to have a good game this one. And having had a win against Derby, people were optimistic that we might get a win in this game as well, even though Tottenham were playing very well and were tipped to be one of the front runners by the various pundits. Anyway, Bobby and his team, slight changes, but more or less the same. Given, Barton, Domi, Goma, Hughes, Speed, Nobby Solano, Kieran Dyer, Aaron Shearer, Daniel Cordoni, and Stephen Glass. And Carl Court's out because of an injury. Some of the substitutes, Diogo Gavilan and Laurent Chavet, are names that won't be remembered very long at Newcastle United, I don't think, but never mind. That was the side. The site that I get this information of, I always have a smile at when they use all the big names, the full names. For example, the manager of Newcastle United is Sir Robert William Robson, OBE. I mean, that's given Bobby his whole title. But an interesting game. And Spurs, of course, lots of stars. Manager George Graham, a star in his own right. Neil Sullivan in goal. Stephen Cart, full-back, someone we get to know quite well. Stoffin Froud, full-back. Sol Campbell, who he comes to us eventually. Chris Perry at the board from Wimbledon. Darren Anderton, a dangerous winger. Tim Sherwood, who we see a lot of television nowadays. Sergio Rebrov. Ben Thatcher, who they got from Wimbledon. And Leonardson, a very dangerous left-sided attacker. So it's two good teams to playing good football at the time, and that's how it panned out. Fortunately for us, though, very early on in the proceedings, Gary Speed on 9 minutes cracks in a beautiful free kick from the edge of the box and puts the 1-0 in the lead, and that's how it stays. And Tottenham come back at us, and we have to hang on a little bit, but on 66 minutes, Daniel Cordoni, probably the best goal he ever scored for Newcastle, takes a volley from a corner after a corner and nearly takes the roof of the net off. But so it's 2-0 at 66, and we're comfortable right at the end. So that's 3 points in the bag against Tottenham, and we are sitting third in the league at this time, but it's early in the season to be worrying about position in league. So we go next game. We go away to Coventry, and Coventry City, of course. Sky Blues at Highfield Road were riding high at that time. Were the surprise team of the era, I think, at that time, and doing very well. Manager Gordon Strachan for Coventry, and then a series of former top class players from all over the Premiership. Marcus Hall, Paul Williams, Richard Shaw, all had top games, top careers with big clubs like Manchester City, Manchester United. Carlton Palmer, who was the mainstay of Nottingham Forest for years. John Eustace from Sheffield Wednesday, and a young man called Craig Bellamy, who we get to know quite well. Yeah, yes, a very good football side. Gordon Strachan had his team playing good football, and 22,000 at the ground, which was a big crowd for Coventry then. And Bobby sends out an almost unchanged team, given and Barton, Goma, Aaron Hughes, Speed, Stephen Glass is in because of an injury, Rob Lee, Alan Shearer, Kieran Dyer, and Daniel Cordoni. So a good side, a strong side was sent to Coventry, and it pays dividends, because within half an hour we're in the lead. Rob Lee's brought down in the penalty area just as he's about to shoot, and Shearer steps up and scores a penalty, and it stays that way till half time. And on the hour, a nice bit of play by Kieran Dyer lets in Kevin Gallagher, who's come on for Glass as a substitute, and Kevin Gallagher slots it in and makes it 2-0. And it ends up a comfortable victory at the end, without there being any drama to follow up. It went very well indeed. Next, we're at home, and we're home to Chelsea. Another team that's thought of as by the pundits as being up there as one of the ones that may be challenging for the title, and only change Bobby makes in our team is Charvet comes in for an injury to Domi. Otherwise, the team's unchanged and looking quite tidy. Young player he brings in Jamie McGlenn, who I always think was a good player we let get away and could have made more of. However, that's football for you. And the Chelsea team, managed by Gianluca Vialli, of course, famous name, and some real talented names in the time. Christian Panucci at fullback, Italian. Frank Leboeuf, the big French player, and of course big in the French national team now. Marcel Desailly, another great French player. Graham Lasso, Roberto Di Matteo, Dennis Wise, a name we conjure with here for all sorts of reasons. Jimmy Floyd, Hasselbank, and Tor Andre Flo, who they just spent a lot of money on getting from Liverpool. So a tidy Chelsea side, and we're not looking too bad. Full house again, 51,500 at the ground, and an entertaining game is my memory, but a one which if they played for another 90 minutes they wouldn't have scored. Ended up 0-0, and everybody in his hand hit the woodwork, and I think Shearer hit both posts and the bar during this game, and Hasselbank did the same for them, but the longer it went on, you just sensed that it was going to be one of those entertaining games, but an entertaining 0-0, I'm afraid. So that's where we are with Chelsea. Then we're off to Southampton, and to the Dell, and it has been a happy hunting ground for Newcastle United. It also has had its in recent years had its dark moments as well. But off we go, and Bobby sends an unchanged team, and Xavi is still in because of Barton's injury, and I always like to look at some of the substitutes, and a substitute in this game was a young man called Shola Amiobi, who legend says, of course, that Bobby Robson used to sometimes forget his name and call him Carl Court. But how much a legend there is, I suspected it's true, because he used to sometimes let his imagination run away with him when he was talking about people. But that was the team that went to the Dell, 16,000 at the Dell, which for the Dell was a big crowd in those days. And Glenn Hoddle, Southampton manager. Now there's a name to conjure with, to be England manager eventually. And his team of, people who we picked up from around the country. I mean, Wayne Bridge, who was left back for Chelsea, Manchester City, and made a lot of money out of his transfers. And Dean Richards, Matt Oakley, James Beattie at centre forward, who was a very dangerous player. And at one stage, there was a lot of talk about Newcastle chasing James Beattie. Anyway, we go to Southampton, and first half, it's 0-0, but in a tidy game. But second half, James Beattie gives our defence the real run around. He doesn't score himself, but he lays two on for Martin Pahars, the dangerous striker, on 47 minutes and 61. And a game at the end, we weren't in. We lost 2-0, and we were lucky at the end, I think, that it was only 2-0. We're then off to League Cup, and we've got a League Cup game at home against Orient. Desperate to progress in this competition. It's not been a very happy hunting ground, but this is second round, first leg at St James's, and Bobby Robson takes it seriously, fields a full side, no messing about it, and he tries a double-pronged attack with Shearer and Court up front, and just to emphasise how keen he is to make progress. I think the other thing is worth saying is that we've had 51,000 in the ground for most of the games so far. Well, this is a League Cup match, 37,000. And I think that tells you a little bit about the slight indifference of the fans to this particular competition. Anyway, Leyton Orient come with Tommy Taylor is the manager, and one or two stars of yesterday almost. Dean Smith, Andy Harris, Carl Griffiths. All great careers, but on the wrong side of history in at this time in their careers, and it's a game which we should win with ease, and effectively we do. Carl Court scores on 34 minutes, Gary Speed on 77 with a beautiful free kick, and we never look like losing this game. So we get ready for the second leg with that 2-0 win. We then have Charlton at home in the Premiership, and Charlton haven't started very well, so there's optimism that we'll get something out of this game. Well, the one thing you get as a Newcastle fan is optimism sometimes becomes pessimism, and certainly in this game, it should have been ours 10 times over. full side. Bobby puts out with the only change is Charvet comes in at fullback because there's an injury to Domi, and otherwise he's stuck with the double-pronged Shearer court attack. 51,000 at the game exactly, and a game we should won, and by half time we should have been out of sight, but we weren't. In fact, we went in at half time 1-0 down. A Graham Stewart goal, a Scottish centre forward who was always dangerous, and he managed to slip through on 8 minutes and put them in the lead. And in the Charlton team, one or two teams we know, Andy Hunt, who we got to know him quite closely when he came to Newcastle. Chris Powell, who was a tidy fullback, and who now is got quite a reputation as a manager. And Alan Kirbishy was their manager, a very tidy player for West Ham United. So Charlton go in 1-0 at half time, and I've got to say, I remember the optimism in the Gallagher corner was that we'd come out after the half time and smash them, and take the game. It didn't happen, unfortunately. It tries the might, huff and the puff. They couldn't blow the Gallagher goal down. It stayed 1-0, and Charlton went away with the points, much to the disappointment of the Gallagher faithful. But not one of our better games. We're then back for the second leg of the game against Orient in the League Cup, and with two no changes. Bobby again sticks by his guns and sends out a strong team, and we should take this. Everybody's expecting this to be fairly straightforward. Well, it wasn't straightforward because Orient are at the Matchroom Stadium at Brisbane Road, and 9,500 at the game, and it's end-to-end stuff. Orient have decided to have a go, and it makes it an entertaining game. At 32 minutes, Kevin Gallagher puts a 1-0 up, but on 45, just right at the last kick of the first half, Orient through Steve Watts, the dangerous attacker, equalises and makes it 1-1. However, that's the way it stays to the end. So we're through to the next round of the League Cup. The next game is away in the league to Manchester City. It's always an entertaining visit to Main Road, always. And the number of times I've read stories about games between us and Manchester City, which have been fascinating. And bearing in mind where it is today, let's hope it's a fascinating one today as well. But Manchester City, managed by Joe Royle, and their goalkeeper, somebody we know quite well, Tommy Wright, and Paul Ritchie and Spencer Pryor, George Way, whose son became an international centre forward, a Nigerian lad, and there in midfield, a man called Alfie Inga Haaland. Well, there's the thing. Now, who's playing centre forward for them today? We think is a young man called Haaland, and that's his dad, no less. Kevin Horlock, Wancho, Paul Dickoff, dangerous little player. Always a thorn in our side, is my memory. 34,000 at Main Road, and I think everybody's hoping we might get something, and we did. It was a end-to-end stuff. The star of the game, none other than a man called Alan Shearer, and very fitting it on 74 minutes. He should be the man who scores the goal that wins the game. So there's a good victory at Main Road. So we come back from Main Road to a game, an away game at Middlesbrough. I'm old-fashioned enough to think that Middlesbrough Newcastle was a Tyne T's derby match, and I'll always be like that, I'm afraid. For what it's worth, my view is that the Premier League would be much stronger if there were 3 North East teams in the Premiership. And I still believe that very fervently. Anyway, we're at the Riverside, which is a relatively new venue for us because it hasn't been open that long. 32,000 at the game. Middlesbrough not faring very well thus far, and certainly not where we are. And so Bobby sends an unchanged team. One slight positional change. Aaron Hughes goes into right back. And Goma comes in at centre back. Otherwise, it's unchanged. On the bench, Lumana Lua, who Bobby just brought into the team, and was quite a tricky little player. That player I liked. I'm not sure we always got the best out of him, but never mind. So we go to the Riverside, and in 38 minutes, we get a corner, and the corner's lofted over by Rob Lee, and almost Alan Shearer's toe end, and volleys at the net, nearly breaks the net. So we're 1-0 up at half time. Straight, sort of 10 minutes after the half time, there's another corner, and Goma heads in one of his rare goals to Newcastle. So we're 2-0 up. And then on 88 minutes, a solo goal from none other than Kieran Dyer puts with 3-0, and it looks like we're coasting to a handsome victory. And then almost the last kick of the game, Brian Dean, Middlesbrough's big centre forward, gets a consolation goal for them to make it 3-1. Other interesting names in their team, of course, Gianluca Festa, an Italian that they brought in, Colin Cooper, who was an old stalwart of Middlesbrough, Gary Pallister, who became much famous after he left and went to Manchester United, of course. Paul Ince is there on his way out, and in the midfield, attacking midfield, there's Robbie Mustoe. I mentioned Robbie Mustoe because if ever there was a player who was a thorn in Newcastle's side throughout his career at Middlesbrough, it was Robbie Mustoe. He hardly put his boots on without he used to score against Newcastle United. It was so almost like clockwork. So we come to a home game against Everton. People think, well, beating Middlesbrough away, let's get some points off Everton. They're slightly above us in the league, but or only just. But still regarded as a side that could challenge because of the quality of the staff. And it's a 0-0 at half time, and it's not a boring 0-0, but it's the one that nobody even looked like scoring. 51,500 in the ground, which is incredible, really. And Everton with Walter Smith, the Scottish manager, is their manager now, and Steve Watson at right back, David Weir at left, Michael Ball, Paul Gascoigne in the midfield, would you believe? Thomas Grevison, Mark Pembridge, and the centre forward, Kevin Campbell, always a dangerous player, very dangerous player. And in this game, he proved to be the difference between the two teams. It looked like it was sailing to 0-0. Then on 80 minutes, Kevin Campbell was left unmarked, and he walloped in a volley in the bottom corner, past Che Given, and Everton went home with the points in what had been an entertaining game until then. We then have an interesting friendly against Middlesbrough, and it's a benefit match for former players of both Newcastle and Middlesbrough. There was players that had played for both, like Stan Anderson and people like that, and it was a gesture on the clubs, and I think a very nice gesture. But with Bobby as the manager and so on, it was always going to be an interesting game. 2-0, and penalties in first and second half for Shearer in what was an entertaining game. But you get used to strange reasons for friendlies with Newcastle United. Sometimes tear your hair out to do them in such a strange way. Next, we're off to West Ham. West Ham playing good football, not regarded as one of the top, but still playing tidy football. To the Bowling Ground at Upton Park, 27,000 at the game, and Bobby Sen's unchanged team. Given, Griffin, Hughes, Lee, Goma, Speed, Solano, Dyer, Shearer, and Clarence Acuna, the South American brought in, and Loa makes his first team debut. West Ham United, managed by Harry Redknapp, very famous name. Shaka Hislop in goal. Stuart Pearce at fullback, Rio Ferdinand at centre back, Nigel Winterburn, who they just got from Arsenal, Michael Carrick in midfield, Joe Cole, Frank Lampard, Trevor Sinclair, Paolo Di Canio, and Federico Canute. Very, very entertaining side, a good football side. A game which we had a chance with, and we certainly gave it our best shot, but 0-0 at half time, and entertaining second half as well. Then on 73 minutes, Canute, an individual goal carved out of some clever play by Paolo Di Canio, and Canute slots it in to make it 1-0 to West Ham. And that's how it stayed. We come home losers on that one, but an interesting game nonetheless. And then we have the League Cup third round. We advanced to the third round now, and we're drawn Bradford City, and we're at home. And it's again Bobby Robson full side go out for this match. And referee Mike Dean, another referee's name who still see occasionally on television. Bradford City with Chris Hutchins as the manager, and one or two ex-Leeds players in the Bradford team with like David Weatherall, Dan Petrescu, Ian Nolan, Lee Sharp, who's ex-Manchester United, Dean Windass, who's a name that people know his son's name even more now because he's been tearing it up with Sheffield Wednesday, and Sad Collymore. And on the subs bench, a man called Dean Saunders, who we get to know very well. An entertaining game. Bradford, don't know whether that was the policy, but Bradford decided to give it a go and just threw caution to the wind, and really did give us something to think about. But as always, when you've got somebody like Shearer in your team, you're always sure of a couple of goals. 22 minutes, 29, and bang, bang, that's Alan Shearer makes for 2-0. 31 minutes, Nolan pulls one back for Bradford. Then on 37 minutes, Cordoni makes it 3 for us. And then after half time, Bradford keep having a go, and Ashley Ward scores 2 quick goals, 57 and 60 minutes, and suddenly we're looking at a draw. But after they scored in the 70th minute, they sat back, which was a mistake, because with the very next corner, and Stephen Caldwell, who'd come on as a substitute, headed in the winning goal for Newcastle. So a nice win, but a very, very entertaining game for the fans, no doubt about it. Now we're home game against Ipswich Town, which has its sentiment for Bobby, of course, having been their manager in better times. They're not doing too well, so it's expected we should win this. But as I often say, expectations when you're a Newcastle fan aren't always what happens. 51,000 in the ground, and unchanged team. Well, one change, Shea Givens back in goal for us, and the Ipswich team, Richard Wright, some names from yesterday, Mark Venus, Jim Magilton, Matt Holland, Jermaine Wright, Richard Nealad, Marcus Stewart, all had good careers in the Premiership, and went to play for their manager George Burley at Ipswich. A good game, a tidy game. Bit of a fright. Marcus Stewart heads in from a corner in 13 minutes, but then 22 minutes, Shearer makes it 1-1, and then the second half it's all Newcastle United, and we get a penalty, and of course none other than Shearer steps up to take it and make it 2-1. So a nice tidy win against Ipswich, and we're now away to Leicester City, and Leicester, a team, good football team, but they're not in a very good position at the moment. In this, we are 7th currently in the Premiership, but they're well below halfway. And Peter Taylor, the manager, the ex-Derby County right-hand man to Cloughie, is their manager. Got some great names in that team, though. Tim Flowers, England goalkeeper. Gary Rowett, who made his real career at a place not far from here, from Newcastle. Matt Elliott, Frank Sinclair, big names in the time in the Premiership, and then a little man called Neil Lennon, who was to become quite a character and quite and particularly when he went to manage Celtic in Scotland. But of course, there's the infamous incident with him and Shearer when, some of the pundits swore blind that Shearer kicked him in the face, and Alan Shearer swore blind it was an accident. Well, nothing happened. The referee didn't take it as other than an accident. But anyway, somebody else in the team who's controversial in every sense of the word is Robbie Savage, was in the Leicester team that day as well. So we go to Leicester, hopeful of getting something out of this game. And 21,000 in Filbert Street. And it's a 0-0, entertaining game, but nobody looks like scoring. And then 63 minutes, the Icelander Gunnar Jönsson of Leicester makes it 1-0 on 63 minutes. And then on 75 minutes, we get a free kick on the edge of the box, and who should step up and take it but Gary Speed, and over the wall it goes into the top corner, and it's 1-1, and that's how it stays till the end of the game. So we come home from Leicester with a draw, which is quite creditable, and the next home game is a Premiership game against our local rivals, against the Mackhams, and because everybody's desperate for this to be a win for lots of reasons, and 52,000 that absolutely bursting at the seams at St James's that day, and it's well, a typical Derby end-to-end stuff. Sets off 100 miles an hour. Looks like we're going to walk it when Gary Speed on 4 minutes makes it 1-0. And that's how it stays till half time. It looks like we're going to coast our way to this one, but it wasn't to be. And with 68 minutes, Don Hutchison makes it 1-1. And then 76 minutes, a tall centre forward called Niall Quinn makes it 2-1, and that's the way it stays to the end. Some interesting characters in the Sunderland team. People who still around now: Sorensen in goal, Michael Gray fullback, Jody Craddock, Don Hutchison, of course, Alexander Ray, who's a Scottish player, dangerous player, Kevin Phillips and Kevin Kilban, all names that that are on the list of legends, I think, down the road at the Stadium of Light, or Roker Park as it used to be. Interesting, the referee is Peter Reid's, Sunderland's manager. This is the first thing I was going to say. And the referee in this game, a man called Graham Poole, my least favourite Premiership referee, had far too much to say for himself, particularly how he didn't like Newcastle United and Newcastle United's fans. How on earth he was ever allowed to referee a match that we played in after he made that public in a newspaper column. I just beggars belief, but it says something more about how things change, how things are. The next game is at home to Liverpool. They're one of the teams that's regarded as possible champions, so it's not going to be an easy game. And we're sitting 7th at the time, and they're in the top 3, managed by Gerard Houllier, the French manager, and a great game, a good game. I remember this game very well, and end-to-end stuff, really good football, and Liverpool team, Westerveld, Babel, Honshaw, Hippier, Jamie Carragher, Steven Gerrard, Didi Hamann, ex-player Russ, Danny Murphy of TV fame, who doesn't particularly like Newcastle when he's on TV, but never mind. We'll get over that, I'm sure. Nick Barnby, Robbie Fowler, and Emile Heskey, big centre forward. A tidy side and playing well. 52,000 in the ground, and a real full house. Bobby plays an unchanged team because Shea's fit and Warren Barton's fit still. And on 4 minutes, Nobby Solano makes it 1-0 to Newcastle, and everybody's happy. It stays that till half time, but end to end, either team could have scored more goals. Then on 70 minutes, Kieran Dyer, nice individual goal from him, makes it 2-0. And then on 78 minutes, Emile Heskey, with a bustling header at a corner, makes it 2-1. And then we have a very, very difficult 15 minutes before the end. But we go out 2-1 winners, and everybody's sweet about that. There's no doubt about it. And next one is the League Cup 4th round at Birmingham. And well, we should take Birmingham is the general consensus at Gallagher Corner, but sadly, it wasn't to be. It was started well. Trevor Francis is Birmingham's manager at the time, of course, very famous name, first £1 million player. Martin Granger, Darren Pulse, all names made great careers in the game. Jeff Horsfield, a very dangerous player in his day, and Stan Lazaridis, who again fantastic winger in his day, but shouldn't be bothering us. 18,000 at the game. Well, whether they should be bothering us or not, it's immaterial, because on 14 minutes, Kieran Dyer puts we 1-0 and 1-0 up, and we think, well, we're on my way. Then the dangerous Birmingham striker, Adi Bola, makes it 1-1 just before half-time. And then the game's sauntering towards a replay, and Martin Johnson, the dangerous attacker who's been quiet most of the game, right at the death. 90 minutes plus 1, it says on his paper, so it's right at the death. Makes it 2-1, and that's us well and truly defeated in the League Cup at Birmingham. So we're next away to Villa in the league, and Villa, another side that's playing quite well, not regarded as title challengers, but playing well, and certainly next to us in the table. We're 8th, and I think they're 6th or something like that. Anyway, Bobby Robson sends out unchanged team: Shea Given, Griffin, Barton, Goma, Hughes, Speed, Solano, Lee, Cordoni, Kieran Dyer, and Clarence Acuna is still playing on the left side. Aston Villa with their manager is the old player, and is Ferguson, and he's picked a strong side against us, but it's an entertaining game, and with lots of dangerous players on both sides, and of course Dion Dublin's a centre forward, him of house fame nowadays, but a dangerous attacker. I think very dangerous in the air, and in 4 minutes he makes it 1-0 to Villa. It looks like we're going to struggle, but we keep pegging away, and then lo and behold, a very, very good individual goal by Nobby Solano on 82 minutes, and we come away from the Villa with a 1-0, a 1-1 draw, which kept people sweet anyway. So the next game we have is a trip to Arsenal, and well, we know it's going to be a difficult game because Arsenal are touting to be the champions, and that they're playing really, really well, and probably sends a strong team with unchanged team. Given Griffin, Barton, Stephen Colwell comes in, Aaron Hughes, Gary Speed, Nobby Solano, Robert Lee, Loa, Kieran Dyer, and Clarence Acuna. No Shearer. Now, this is the season when Shearer got really serious injury and missed most of this season because of that injury. And if you talk to Alan Shearer, he will say that had he not been Bobby Robson was the manager, it might have been the end of his career. But Bobby Robson never left him alone, kept pressing him to get fit. And he did, and he came back. And I know without fear of contradiction, Aaron Shearer would be the first thing to say that if it hadn't been for Bobby Robson, his career could have been over. Anyway, we go to Arsenal. Arsene Wenger's the manager. Teams that names that we know: Lee Dixon, Frank Lundberg, Martin Keown, who we see on telly a lot, Tony Adams, Ray Parlour, Giles Grimaldi, Thierry Henry, Carnu, and Robert Perez. Some very, very dangerous players there. Now, the name Perez always makes me smile because one of the last away games I went to at Arsenal, Perez was playing, and we were in the north stand, and he fell down injured, and the Newcastle fans were yelling cheat, and he was carried off. It wasn't after the match that we discovered he dislocated his knee. He wasn't cheating at all. He really was injured. Anyway, in this game he was up playing and tearing us to bits. Him and Henry were just difficult to live with. They didn't score the goals, but they made them for others. And half time we were 2-0 down thanks to Thierry Henry and Ray Parlour. And then in the second half they just took us to pieces, with Parlour completing a hat-trick and Carnu getting a goal as well. A game we're never really in, and not a comfortable day at the Highbury. It was they really showed us how to play football that day. We now back home to a game against Bradford City. Everybody heaves a sigh of relief that it's not another Arsenal. Bradford City, the Cinderellas, of course, in the Premiership at that time, 51,000 at the game, despite the previous awful result. And Jim Jeffries, the Bradford manager, a team of how can you say, people who are on their way down, apart from one or two names that we know. Andy O'Brien was in their side. Dan Petrescu, Ian Nolan, Stuart McCall, Bill McKinley, Dean Windass, Robbie Blake, Benito Carboni, all players who've had sizable careers in the game, but on their way down the other side, should we say. 51,000 at the game again, and Bobby sends out his an unchanged team, and well, it's an interesting game. On 14 minutes, Gary Speed scores from a free kick just outside the area, and it looks like we're coasting. On 70 minutes, Kieran Dyer scores a nice individual goal. Then on 83 minutes, Robert Monaco, the dangerous attacker, Slavian attacker, on 83 makes it 2-1. Now, give Bradford credit where credit's due. They actually had a go then, and we had an uncomfortable last 15 minutes in that game. But we came away with a 2-0 victory, and delighted that that's the case. We're away to Derby County now, and unchanged team again from Bobby. 30,000 in the Pride Stadium, which isn't that old. Still managed by Jim Smith, Derby, and some as before, using players that have had sizable careers like Craig Burley, Seth Johnson, Rory Delap of the long throw fame. Rory Delap used to throw from the halfway line and put it in the penalty area. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He was a threat from almost a Malcolm Christie, Dean Byrne, and Darren Powell in the front line for Derby. A dangerous team on the day, and of course we go to Pride Park, and it's 1-0 at half time. Their Italian forward Carabaloni scores on 33 minutes, and Newcastle have a goal in the second half. People hopeful will come back, but Dean Barton, the old Burton rather, the old midfielder, scored a beautiful goal to make it 2-0, and that's how it stayed. We were never going to come back into the game. After that, it was 2-0. It was. So we then come home to a home game against Leeds United, and a game which is always a tough game, an entertaining game. Usually 52,000 in the ground again, full house, and David O'Leary managing Leeds as he did, and the really tidy side. Paul Robinson in goal, Gary Kelly, Rio Ferdinand, Jonathan Woodgate, Dominic Matteo, Eric Blake, Lee Bowyer, Oliver DeCourt, Harry Kewell, Alan Smith, Mark Baduka. Four names there who end up playing for Newcastle United, which is fascinating. And we go out against Leeds with an unchanged team, and high hopes that we'd get something out of this game. And sure enough, with just before half time, an individual goal from Nobby Solano makes it 1-0. And then right on half time, Acuna makes it 2-0. And we think, well, that's it. That's the scoring all done. Well, we're mistaken, because the last kick of the half, and Leeds pull one back with Oliver DeCourt. So they'll go in at 2-1. And it's a strong, good attacking game, entertaining football. But that's how it stays to the end. We at the end coasted through to the victory, and it's no more than we deserved. On the day we were the better side. There's no question about that. And so we now at home to Manchester United the next game, and tough game because they're challenging for the title along with one or two others. 52,100 in the ground, absolutely packed to the rafters, with Sir Alec Ferguson obviously as their manager, or names to conjure with in this team. Barhes, Fez in goal, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Mikel Silvestre, Wes Brown, David Robert Joseph Beckham. There's a name to conjure with. David Robert Joseph Beckham. I love that. Roy Keane, Nicky Butt, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Dwight York, and Ryan Joseph Giggs. A team of anybody's choice would make it. Would think it was a team and a half. Well, team and a half it was, and certainly given us a good game. But Newcastle had a go, and unfortunately, we give away a penalty very early on in 25 minutes, and none other than David Robert Joseph Beckham steps up and scores from the penalty. So they're 1-0 up at half time. But we're not looking as though we'd given up. We're still having a go and keep having a go. And after half time, we suddenly start to get the better of the game. And Stephen Glass comes on as a substitute on 74 minutes. And on 81 minutes, Stephen Glass scores the equaliser. A beautiful goal by the little diminutive lad from Aberdeen. And we end up with a 1-1 draw, which was slightly unexpected, because I think people expected, certainly the pundits expected, that we would get turned over by Manchester United. But it was a good game. We didn't lie down and take it. We actually gave them a proper game. The next game's an away game to Tottenham at White Hart Lane. 35,000 at the game. This is not going to be easy. Tottenham now playing really good football and at the top end of the league, and we're in the middle, struggling a little bit. George Graham, the manager, as I said before, and the team of all-stars: Sol Campbell, Chris Perry, Darren Anderton, Tim Sherwood, Stephen Clements, Ledley King, Les Ferdinand, a name to conjure with, Gary Doherty, Sergio Rebrov, a real a team of all-stars. Bobby, very faithful to his team. One change, Stephen Harper comes into goal for an injury for Shea Given. Shea's on the bench, but he's recovering from injury, and Stephen Harper takes the jersey. Entertaining game, but worst thing we did was to open the scoring on 23 minutes, because after that Spurs just went bananas. Gary Doherty equalised on 27. Darren Anderton on 30, Serge Rebrov on 35, and we go in 3-1 down at half time. After half time, Kieran Dyer manages to get a penalty and takes it himself to make it 3-2. But Spurs just increased the pace, and inevitably, when they were playing against the next Newcastle player, a nice cross from Anderton, Darren Anderton, and who beats it but Les Ferdinand to make it 4-2. And my memory is that we were lucky to come out of that just 4-2. It was a good game, but not if you're a Newcastle fan. And so we're now in the FA Cup third round, and we're at home to Aston Villa. Well, progress in the FA Cup's always almost expected by Newcastle fans, and 30. It was a Sunday match. The crowd mystified me in this game. 38,000 when we've been getting 51 for other games. Whether people were just pressed about our performance in cups or not, I don't know. But disappointing crowd in that sense. Anyway, it's a good game. But both teams doing their darndest to score. We've got an unchanged team, and Steve Harper playing out of his skin quite a lot of the time because it's Dion Dublin, Gareth Barry, and a young man called David Ginola in the side. Peppered our goal. Paul Merson, another name that people will know from television. David James is in goal for them. So it's a tidy Villa side, but it's a one that we should be capable of resisting. But on 55 minutes, Steve Stone, the dangerous midfielder, makes it 1-0 to Villa, and it looks like we're out of the run and all together. But then 80 minutes, and Nobby Solano with a beautiful solo goal makes it 1-1. So at least we salvage a draw from the game. So the next game, we're at home to Coventry City at St James's Park in Premiership. 40,000 at this game. I suspect that's more to do with Coventry than anything else. Jeff Winter, the referee, another entertaining referee, somebody who talked sense as a referee. From Stockton, well, of course, he would talk Stoke sense, wouldn't he, from Stockton? Anyway, Gordon Strachan, the Coventry manager, a team of talented players. What the biggest one to mention, of course, is Craig Bellamy. Dangerous in to the last, no question. Anyway, we set off with 100 miles an hour. Gary Speed opens on 4 minutes. Shola on 58 makes it 2. Kieran Dyer on 66 makes it 3. And then at 80 minutes, they get a corner and it bops around like it's on a billiard table. The ball's banging off this one and that one. It ends up hitting Stephen Glass on the back of the head and going into the net to make it 3-1 to Newcastle. But again, we never looked like losing it, and a good 3 points. And lifts us into the top half of the league, because a couple of defeats have made it slightly depressing. So we're now going for the replay of the cup at Villa Park against Aston Villa, and it's a game with it. Obviously, looked like the win. We're in with a shout because they're not that much better than us. They're about mid-table like we are. 26,000 at the game, and unchanged team from Sir Bobby, and Villa virtually the same team. John Gregory's now the manager. David James, Steve Staunton, Gareth Southgate at centre back for them. Dion Dublin, Alan Wright, George Boateng, Lee Henry, who we see on television, Paul Merson, who we see on television, and a dangerous young forward called Darius Vassell playing for them. He's only just come into the squad at Villa, but a dangerous young player, and dangerous he was on this day, because 0-0 at half time, entertaining game, but nothing happening. And on 50 minutes, this very same man, Darius Vassell, makes mugs out of our defence, turns them inside out, and makes it 1-0, and that's us out of the FA Cup to Villa. But an entertaining game. We the best you can say about it was they gave it a go. And the next game is an away game at Leeds United. Always going to be a very, very tough game, or tougher than we thought. And Bobby sends an unchanged team, and it no surprises there. The team's been playing well with the way it's set up, where Bobby'd set it up. Shola's on the bench, and rare appearance on the bench by Marcelino. 40,000 at Elland Road. David O'Leary still a manager, and with a team of all-stars. Danny Mills at fullback, another TV pundit who has his problems. He almost chokes when he says Newcastle United on the telly, but never mind. In the team, Jonathan Woodgate, Lee Bowyer, Mark Viduka, another one, and Robbie Keane, a very dangerous forward, who had a good career. And it starts 100 miles an hour at Elland Road. Robbie Keane, 2 minutes, bang, tricks our defence inside out and goes in, makes it 1-0. But we get a penalty, and then Nobby Stellano steps up and takes the penalty, makes it 1-1. Acuna's in the side, still in the side, and he makes it 2-1 at half time. And it looks like that's how it's going to go. But just before the end, almost last kick, there's a corner, and big tall man called Shola Amiobi makes it 3-1. So we come away from Leeds with an unexpected 3-1 victory, I think is the best way to describe it. No doubt about that. We then off to Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, not a happy hunting ground on occasions, but unchanged side from Bobby again, which I think shows in how we're playing in some ways. We're sitting 7th in the table, but it could have been worse. We've got some interesting games and some interesting wins. Claudio Ranieri is the Chelsea manager. The team is practically the same as we had. Frank Leboeuf, Melchiot, Dessau, Gus Poyet, of course, Dennis Wise, Hasselbank, Gianfranco Zola. Very, very talented squad. They introduced a young fullback called Celestine Babiaro, who was to become quite a star for them. And anyway, we go to Chelsea in the hope that we might get something out of the game. And, well, the hope looks promising. On 23 minutes, Basidas scores on 23 minutes, and we're in the lead. 1-1 at half-time. Zola equalises just before half-time. The second half, Chelsea take over, and Gus Poyet and Jesper Gronkia, the Icelandic player, makes it 3-1. So we come away from Stamford Bridge 3-1, and disappointed, but it's the way the game went. We went once we were behind, and it never looked like we were going to get back in it. So we now go to Charlton, second away game in London on the trot. Now, the perceived wisdom on Tyne's side, including the press as well as the fans, was that Charlton were there for the taking. I mean, they were well below us, and we were sitting 10th at this time. But sadly, despite having this unchanged team and playing reasonably well, we weren't in the game. 20,000 at the Valley. We could have played all day and never looked like scoring. And Matt Svensson for them on 37 minutes, and Sean Bartlett on 43 makes it 2-0 at half time, and that's how it stayed till the end. It was from a Newcastle point of view quite depressing, because we just couldn't get into the game. It was away from one, no doubt about it. However, one name worth mentioning in their team as a debutant, a young man called Scott Parker, playing for them, and well, we got to know him quite well during his career. So we're back home now to Manchester City. who are about the same place as us in the league, were there should be no problem about us having a go at this match, and certainly we did, but unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that. It was 0-0 at half time and looked like never going to score. And on 61 minutes, the talented, dangerous centre forward Sean Gorter scored from a header from a corner, and left with without anything, left with speechless. But worth mentioning again in the City side, Haaland's father's there, Richard Dunn, and a young man called Steve Howie playing centre back for Manchester City, and Darren Huckabee playing on wide right for City. So there's connections, but the connections didn't do any good. We lost at home 1-0, and we're now slipping down slightly below middle, which is getting an uncomfortable feeling in the Gallagher corner. And we're now away to Everton, who are not playing too badly, but slightly above us. And Bobby again, virtually an unchanged side, with David Ellery is the referee, another character, ex-Eton school teacher, who, when he spoke very eloquently, but a good referee as well, it's fair to say. Walter Smith, still manager of Everton. Steve Watson, still playing for them. And Kevin Campbell and Scott Gemmell, dangerous forward line. And Everton go and give us the lead on 47 minutes, an own goal from David Unsworth. He, in attempting to clear from a ball from Robert Lee, ends up putting it in the back of his net, and it gives us the lead. And then that's how it stays until nearly 85 minutes. We thought we'd got the win when there's another upset in our goal mouth with Andy Griffin pulling down Scott Gemmell, and Unsworth steps up and takes the penalty to make the equaliser on 82 minutes. So a 1-1 draw, which is creditable because a lot of the pundits weren't expecting us to get anything at all out of that particular game. We're now at home to Middlesbrough. Now, having walloped them at the Riverside, it's right to expect that we might do something similar at St James's Park. Well, 52,000 in the ground, they're certainly expecting it to happen. Fortunate to have an unchanged side again. It's we're 13th at the moment, and a win would shoot up the top half of the table, which is what we want. But somebody forgot to tell Middlesbrough, and Middlesbrough for the first half just played off the park. Bosic, the attacker, 28 minutes 33, sent away in 2-0 down at half time. We had a goal in the second half, and Carl Court on 60 minutes scored a goal. But the truth is, we never looked like we'd win this game, despite the fact that everybody thought we were going to. A very disappointing game. I remember how the groans in the Gallagher corner at the final whistle for that one, but lost we did, and it meant we were in the wrong half of the table, at the bottom half of the table. And next game is away to Bradford City. We certainly need something out of this game because they're bounced along the bottom, well below us, and 21,000 in Valley Parade. Jim Jeffrey's still the manager, and good side, but all players who you have to say we're on the wrong side of 30, but doing their darndest, and making life difficult for us, because within 10 minutes we're 2-0 down. David Weatherall and Robbie Blake both scored, and it looked like we're in for a very difficult day. But then on 25 minutes, Carl Court gets a beautiful header to make it 2-1. And in the second half, Newcastle really give it a go, and it's no surprise when Acuna scores the equaliser on 80 minutes to make the last 10 minutes quite backs to the wall for Bradford for a change, and not for Newcastle. But at least we got a point out of it, and stopped our slide down the league. We now have Ipswich away. We again still in a position where we need points, but 25,000 at the game, and it's not going our way. We never looked like scoring in the first half. It was. You can't even say it was end to end. It just was. Nobody was going to score in this game, except on 76 minutes, a very careless challenge by Wayne Quinn, who had just come into the side, gave them a penalty, and Marcus Stewart strode up and walloped it in. So 76 minutes, 1-0, and we never looked like getting anything out of that game, which was really disappointing. West Ham United at home next. We did well at West Ham, and people were optimistic that we might do well in this one as well. And sure enough, we did. It was a 52,000 at the ground. Considering my position, that's fantastic. Carl Court on 32 minutes puts were in the lead from a beautiful header. Most of Carl's good goals were headers, and then we got a penalty, a dangerous tackle by Winterburn, their fullback, and Nobby stands up and takes the penalty himself, and so we're 2-0 in the lead, and that's how it's going. And it looks like we're going to sail out. But then on 80 minutes, careless tackle again by Wayne Quinn again, I'm afraid, and Frank Lampard steps up and makes it 2-1 to make the last 10 minutes quite uncomfortable, is my memory of that one. But a 2-1 victory, which puts us in the right half of the table, is how I'd best describe it. We're now heading back to for the second of the derbies with the Mackhams. This one's at the Stadium of Light, and it's a one that, considering how we performed in the first one, is not everybody's looking forward to. But there's a feeling of confidence that surely it couldn't happen again. That they're just below us. We're 13th and they're about 15th. So there's nothing in the game in terms of where we are. And we got an unchanged side, and lo and behold, on 0-0 at half time, but end-to-end stuff as you'd expect in a derby, lots of crunching tackles, and everything's going well. And then careless tackle, mistake by Nikos Dabizas, and they get a free kick. The dangerous midfielder Calderon, 67 minutes, scores from the free kick, and it looks like we're going to go out 1-0 losers. But then on 78 minutes, from a corner, a young man called Andy O'Brien steps up and heads an equaliser. So we go home a lot happier than we thought with a 1-1 draw from Sunderland. We're now at home to Leicester. I'm giving a good account of ourselves at Leicester. Everybody's hoping that we'll get the points back in this one, and it's an entertaining game. It's amazing that 0-0 at half time. It could have been 5-5 if the chance got in. We're unchanged, and 51,000 at the game. And my least favourite referee, Graham Poole, is refereeing again. Leicester City manager, still Peter Taylor, but talent in the team, Tim Flowers, Gary Rowett, Matt Jones, Steve Guppy, who's someone we get to know later on because he's one of ours, as they say, and Dean Sturridge, really talented players. A good, entertaining game, and it looks like it's going to be one of those frustrating, entertaining games that's going to end on 0-0 until last kick of the game. We get a corner, and over it comes from Nobby Solano. Who greets it on the end of it but Carl Court, and it says on here 90 plus 3 minutes. Carl Court, and we get a 1-0 win, which heaves a sighs of relief around the Gallagher corner, except from the ones that went home early, who would have to read it in the paper the next day. But a 1-0 win, which puts us back in the top half of the table and feels a lot more comfortable. We're now at home to Southampton, who gave us a tough time at the Dell. Well, not an easy game. They're about the same as us, 10th position approximately, and Stuart Gray's now their manager, but the side's virtually unchanged from the one that played us at the Dell. James Beattie and Kevin Davis, dangerous pairing up front, and on the subs bench, of course, Matt Letitia, who has always been a thorn in our side. 26 minutes, Kevin Gallagher puts us 1-0 in the lead, and on 81, Marian Pajas equalises for Southampton. And on the balance of play, a fair result. We never looked like winning it, but Southampton give it a go, and the 1-1 reflected the kind of game it was. So we're now away to Liverpool. There are tough games, and then there's Anfield. Nobody seriously at home is thinking we're going to win this one, but at least we're hoping to give it a go. Well, give it a go or not, we're outplayed is the only way to describe it. And this is hard to read because we got beat by 3-0. And who scored all 3 goals? A young man called Michael Owen. 25 minutes, 72 minutes, 81 minutes, Michael Owen. And Didi Hamann was in the side as well. Emil Heskey, Stephen Gerrard, Jamie Carragher, Hippier, Babel, Westerveld in goal. A typical Liverpool talented side. 45,000 at Anfield, and we were never in it, is the honest answer, from kick-off to the final. We didn't lie down, but we were never actually in the game at all. And we're now heading home to another tough game against Arsenal. And in between, guess what? We play friendly at West Bromwich Albion for one of their old players. Barlow, who played for England, was facing hard times, and they did a testimonial for him. 5,000 turned up for it, and we went, and I suspect that was arranged with Bobby Robson, because what a time to have a friendly. But that's it. Good cause, I think, was thought. Anyway, we're at home in the league to Arsenal next. Now, having had difficult games, Arsenal are riding high at the moment, and would look to want to win this one to press their claims for the title. And we have an unchanged team from Sir Bobby, and 51,000 in the ground. And Arsenal, Wenger's the manager. David Seaman's in goal now. Lee Dixon, Ashley Cole, Patrick Vieira, Martin Kehoe, Tony Adams, Ray Parler, Etienne Lauren, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, in Robert Perez. I mean, that's a team to conjure with. And there's no doubt that going to have to be on my mettle for this one. Well, it's an entertaining game, end-to-end stuff. Could have played all another week, and it never looked like anybody was going to put the ball back in the net, despite all the talent on display. And it ended 0-0. Not what Arsenal wanted, but by Jove, it was good for us because it kept us in the top half of the table. And here we are at home to Aston Villa, last game of the season. Now, last game, if we win it, we're well and truly into the top half of the season of the league fixed. 52,000 in the ground. Villa, John Gregory's the manager now. Names to conjure with in their team: David James in goal, Gareth Southgate centre back, Paul Merson, Darius Vassell, Lee Henry, and David Ginola. But as way things go, it was a day when Newcastle were on form, and Stephen Glass on 9 minutes scored a fantastic goal, and Carl Court on 17 minutes makes it 2-0, and that's what it was at half time. And second half, it was all ours, and it was no surprise when we got a third goal. It's down as an own goal, but it actually was a brilliant shot by Solano that went in off Gary Delaney, their fullback. So we ended up 3-0 winners and ended the season in the top half of the table. And just typical Newcastle. Exeter City had asked for to play a friendly. They were struggling financially, and Bobby Robson took the full team down, and we played at Exeter. 6,000 in the ground for the match, and that ended our season. We ended 11th in the league, which, considering the fact that Bobby Robson had tuppence to spend at the beginning of the season, but he did show with the likes of buying of Oliver Bernard and Andy O'Brien and one or two others that he knew a player that could fit in and did exactly that. So not the best season, but I think considering where we were in terms of financial, as to say, Carl Court was my big buy, 7 million from Wimbledon, says it all for me. But an interesting season, and the one, as I say, for me, showed the mettle of Bobby Robson as a manager, how he can manage a squad which was thin. I mean, thin squads are something we talk a lot about at the moment. Well, he had a thin squad then, but he made it work. He made it work, and at times it looked quite healthy. Big down for him, Shearer's injury, no doubt. Nearly a whole season. I think he only played twice again that season, and only part games. So to manage that and lose your star player was a season for Bobby Robson to remember. So there you are, Steve.
Great stuff, mate. As always, thanks for taking the time to do it. And whilst you were busy beavering away on that, congratulations to Coventry City, who went through against Wolves in a humdinger of a game. They were 1-0 up, then 2-1 down, and in injury time scored 2 goals to win 3-2. So, George, the magic of the FA Cup is well and truly alive.
Absolutely, and why not? And I heard rumours about them trying to fiddle with it again. I hope to goodness they don't. It's so special. It's so special.
Thanks to those who watched live. Connie Nielsen says, thank you so much, George, for doing this. Much appreciated. And Les says, agree, Connie, watching the FA Cup, but listening to War George, perfect.
Well, thank you all very much for watching. I know all the lads appreciate your support, Steve particularly. And we only do it because we enjoy it. We only do it because we love Newcastle United. So that's what it's about. And as I enter I saw my first game when I was 4 years old, and I'm 82 now. So So I've been going a while, but it doesn't change. If you cut my arm, it still bleeds black and white. So that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, mate. And we
you.
will see you on the Fans Forum on Monday. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. with Stu and Mitch to do the professionals. Take care, George.
See you, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Go to their website, skipsandbins.com. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. Go to their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com or phone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. They're a local company from Morpeth and there are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under the video. Click the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. If you want to help the channel financially, you can pay a one-off £25 fee. You get a cup, a scarf, a pen and a membership card and entry into the NUFC Matters monthly draw. Email john@nufcmatters.com for more details, or if you've got a smartphone, scan the QR code now and it takes you straight to the membership pack. We also support the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a donation virtually today. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. We also do events during the year. NUFC Matters Live will be at the O2 City Hall on Friday the 2nd of August for an evening with Rob Lee, one night in Antwerp. Tickets start at £15 and you can get them from ticketmaster.co.uk. An evening with the entertainers takes place on Friday the 24th of January 2025 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House in Newcastle. Telephone 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk to buy tickets today. You can also catch me on the North East Footy Breakfast Show live on Toon Radio weekdays 7 till 9 a.m. on DAB, smart speakers and the toonuk.com.